The author's prologue, 7/2/26, by Satan Xerxes Carnegie LaVey, author's legal birth name. So what exactly is a damn fine social pariah? In an age of social subterfuge gone haywire, it is someone who strikes out from the position of the underdog as a patriot. It is, quite perfected more than that, a keeper of the realm, a carrier of lost and bygone traditions and arts, an oxymentalist, box breaker, and non-joiner. Of those things that are the problem for comfort and an easy life. I have found myself amidst a culture gone haywire and of many sources and roots. Where should I begin? Was it the solar priest rites, the cloaks, the demon voice, the journalism, or the theatrics? The rippling of the sonar-like sensations of bad actors thinly veiling their hostility towards those not scourged by the mantle of choices and deficits and the directional vagrancy and inability to forecast the ultimate destination of taking and sowing what they knew was wrong. Far beneath the worthy lot of contribution to the greater sociologically mimetic organism of people as it moves and charts the waters, as well as the consecration of its continual happenstance as the moments of historians scribbled for. In that blind crossfire of warped and distorted politic, the orders of intention lost in the martial stances of the offended at rumors where the source should be, those stirring the confusion, brazen in their lack of realization, their stirring of hostilities would only last so long as their ability to maintain the tearing threads of a narrative already bursting with contradictions, less than believable character misdescription, and unconceivable grievances both aired and shockingly attended, even when it defies sense to do so. All parties, groups, and factions bewildered by the outrageous declination of both reason, sanity, and safeguard against threats, both actual and vividly lunatic. I seem to be great at a great many things, and in spite of that, I can't seem to get any traction in this world, as though some invisible will, working treason and desperately trying to conceal their tedious footing. It was not a novel perception for me. All my life, people who had no real stake in the world other than to consume and to blame had many times devolved their mental acuity, presuming that they could ignore their problems by acting as though I was the problem, which of course buried their true pathological ticking deadline of fated catastrophe created by their willing blindness to glaring and fully problematic defects of character, ethic, respect, and aptitude to even grasp the nature of their suicidal direction. It was when I realized that individually, oratory of my plight and its alarming, organized, and insidiously obvious criminal origin did not raise concern of those not already affected by it, who often, in their cognitive dissonance, either brushed it off or tried to blame it on less earth-shattering causes, so as to resume their blissful ignorance of the virus spreading across the Republic, tarnishing its core experiment in freedom and liberty. Just calling out my frustrations nearly never helped anything change. But once I broadened it toward more ubiquitous social dilemmas, I was finally able to hit pay dirt as people started to realize that most of those voices calling these wake-up calls of organized and criminal methodologies as crackpot, intoxicated, or paranoid were so concealed by that design. I soon developed a working hypothesis as to how to utilize my temporal signal. Bare bones, simple bullet points, to explain without confusing tangents or over-elaborate overtures of vital details outlined, evolving personal development and social cohesion, and above-normal human talents that let me outmaneuver and tactically place in exactitude, itemized and ultra-revolutionizing social insights, strategies, and distant codex of quizzical concealing verbiage meant to dissuade the ignorant from becoming wise and elusive to manipulation and deception by those exaggerating their exasperation at perfectly valid concerns, frustration, and mania of their intentionally isolated, often confused victims. With a bit of practice and established routines that work even in the midst of popular group denial and airwave dominance, I found I could snipe these gangs of life-destroying parasites by dismantling their automaton rhetoric, outlining their very obvious core pathology via their denial, deflection, and social hostility utilized to hide their vicious, unprovoked resentment of better folk, making notations of their unavoidable psychological tunnel blindness, and repurposed old tricks, reverse engineered their social contagion so completely that when their social error lays them exposed, they need to know how or why they got there, or how to escape it. So what the fuck am I talking about here anyway? A lifelong body of work in street psychoanalysis that has been twice separated from me by spurious calls to police by persons who in every fallible sense intentionally destroyed the reputation and stability of an innocent person because they were afraid of the paradigm shift in human awareness, immunity to deception, and at last recognition of the true source of political and factional upturn and trample. Always spinning around trying to find the bugger that hid in the mass and through the rocks and nonsense proclamations that confounded normal debate and disclosure in the first. For quite some time, in a leftist-leaning wave of decades, it would have caused a very concerned look or a comical response had you told your neighbors that the initial cause of their Wi-Fi signal and grotesque worldview behind the IP address of honest and hardworking Americans beset at conditions and attention that was never meant for them, while meanwhile those supposed to be restricted in their mobility and access to society, this act of well-organized child rapists, moral ones at that, by their status and criminal conditions for parole, walk around with lives they not only never earned, but are no longer entitled to by their abhorrent choices and debt to society, now instead feeding off the prosperity gleaned by the suffering of blind victims, completely unaware why they became isolated and outcast. My thoughts are very loud, and if you ever run into me, you will know exactly what I mean by that. Also, it might be worth mentioning that I am the heir to the satanic legacy handed down by my father, Anton LaVey, although I just simply call him Brad. It might be worth mentioning that I believe in love, the one true love in fact, but those that practice sexual depravity and have no self-control seem hell-bent on trying to dissuade me from the estimation that the one true love is real and worth waiting for. People have committed crimes against myself and others in an attempt to conceal their own so continuously that many of us have now become indemnified, and many of us stepping up to the mantle of damn fine social pariahs, delivering a decisive, devastating, and entrenching, dredging critical damage to a machine of corruption and aloof dismissiveness long sought to be insurmountable by any resistance. So is it all a show? Or is it real? Well, I think the most honest assessment is that it is far more actual, accelerated, and steady than even the loudest derogatory denials, rending the rotted psyche of even the loudest and saddest cognitive dissonance. Many of them speak as though from authority, although derived from the delusional imaginary sense of worth, they derive further from their self-deceiving esteem, not long-lasting in the face of their non-avoidable consequences written in stone by every hack, trail of spurious claims, legal repercussions for misuse of emergency services like their own personal security detail, always assuming that they were master of far more disciplined, alert, stronger, and much less tolerant of being made pawn of lying frauds and charlatans that cause endless harm to innocent people as long as they can hide their condemned, doomed state of predatory deception and shameless sacrifice of blameless persons, that they have to be made to face the putrid sack of worthless filth they actually are. So how did the concept of this book emerge? With a simple title. It sounded catchy at the time, so I championed it even though at the time it was really just a novel meld of words I had not encountered. Always strike from the position of the underdog, avowed in restoring, re-educating, and championing our guaranteed rights and freedoms laid down by the original intent of the Constitution, its supremacy clause as stated, not as interpreted by those looking to take advantage of those undereducated in civics, the social contract, and actual positional responsibility, not just that delegated by those avoiding it. Or worse, let lax by the corrupt holders of office by wrongful elevation to an office made changeable for that very reason. In a republic designed to be kept by the representative will of a populace given voice to the continual development of the governance of the unified country, and even so in its disagreements, variance in belief or lack thereof, contention or concern, can find reasonable redress even in times when it seems its core tenets that have kept it for centuries unbroken, so long as those people that people it give enough of their own effort to keep it, and not vote blindly, hoping it turns out for the best. Your current era gonzo journalist, Satan, Xerxes, Karnaki LaVey, and Ruda Zith.